I'm Mike, and today, how society has made dietary child abuse the norm, resulting in obese infants, 700-pound 15-year-olds, and Honey Booboo. In the United States, it's a crime to neglect your child. Leave your little Johnny for a period of time and don't feed him. The consequence, really hungry little Johnny, and you get criminal charges. But you can feed little Johnny horribly to the point of chronic disease, and the law will leave you alone. The fact of the matter is, the Western diet is child abuse. I knew I had to do this video when I heard that more infants were becoming obese before they even left their mother's breast, before they had ever eaten solid food. And not just chubby baby cute, but like clinically obese. The Harvard School of Public Health found that rates of infant obesity had increased by 73% between 1980 and 2001, which was still 14 years ago, so they're probably worse today. But how does this happen if they haven't even eaten food yet? Well, smoking when you're pregnant increases chances of obesity, but smoking has gone down. Turns out gestational diabetes may play a role with all those blood sugar spikes and lows and kind of mess with the baby's metabolism. But there's a more compelling reason. Here's a report on the subject that says, quote, mounting evidence points to a unique and underappreciated trigger for obesity, exposure to small traces of environmental chemicals in the environment. The average newborn has 287 of these chemicals, 217 of which are neurotoxic. These chemicals in the umbilical cord include pesticides, phthalates, BPA, flame retardants, heavy metals such as mercury, lead, and arsenic. But how are toxins linked to obesity? It's old news that they've been associated to obesity, but can we actually demonstrate it in a lab? We can't test it on humans, and we definitely aren't going to test it on babies, so we did it on rats. In a recent study from Johns Hopkins, some poor rats were given an increased level of toxins despite not having a lower level of calories and not an increased level of exercise. In 6 months, the rats given toxins were 20% heavier and had 36% higher body fat than the control rats. So toxins equal fat rats, and we're both mammals, so that probably has something to do with infant obesity. But our world's just getting more polluted. There's nothing we can do about it. But wait, 95% of toxins come from animal products. That's right. This is because industrial and agriculture pollutants are bioaccumulated through the food chain. Each step higher you eat on the food chain, it's common to see a 10 times concentration of PCBs, lead, mercury, and other pollutants. In cow, pig, chicken, dairy, fish, people have even referred to Alaskan wild salmon as being laced with PCBs. So giving up animal products seems like a pretty good bet when fighting childhood obesity. Let's move past infancy to childhood. The CDC says that now nearly 20% of children are obese. Does that mean that 1 in 5 parents are abusing their children through diet? I've mentioned many times in my videos that we can now see fatty streaks, the beginning of heart disease, on nearly all 10-year-old children. So it's more than just obesity, it goes deeper. But it's not just parents doing the child abuse, it's also our government in bed with big business. This report points to the meat and dairy industries as driving factors in this epidemic. Both the beef and chicken industries make nearly $250 million a year off school lunches. And here's a breakdown of ads in the publication by the School Nutrition Association, a nonprofit, once again proving that a nonprofit is not necessarily good. And these dairy products are certainly the lowest in quality, with no consumers reading labels about added hormones, and of course, ground school lunch meats are notorious for being the nastiest, most hormone-laden, disgusting meat out there. Now, to witness dietary child abuse in action, here is the reality TV show star Honey Booboo, who was approaching twice her healthy weight at the age of 9.
Yeah, it's really good.
Oh.
At 4'6" and 125 pounds, her parents were pressured to change her diet for fear of her getting diabetes and other ailments in addition to her asthma. Here's her mom on the doctors getting an intervention.
And the one thing that I'm hearing, and we hear this a lot, is you're trying to make a lot of excuses. Is the common culprit in a lot of these things, believe it or not, is what you're eating. And when I looked in your fridge, there's no question that we've got to address Alana's asthma. Asthma is inflammation of the airways.
Yes.
And I'm gonna be honest, as mom, you need to take some responsibility here.
It's amazing to me how many amazing points they hit while missing the main point entirely. They make the connection between her diet and her bad health. They even place some blame, some responsibility on her mother, and they make the connection between inflammation and her asthma. Then they give her a taste test where they actually do a pretty good job with a berry shake and avocado pudding, but then they do what I consider polishing a nutritional turd.
Wow. Come up for air. That's pretty good. There you go.
What do you think?
They give her baked chicken. They think that since it's rolled in whole wheats and oats, it counteracts the fact that just one drumstick has 123 milligrams of cholesterol, or 40% of the daily limit for an adult, also 25% of the daily limit of saturated fat, not to mention it's loaded with arsenic. They also gave her pizza with cauliflower crust. The cauliflower crust is awesome, but the cheese on the pizza is an invitation for juvenile diabetes. If you're interested in the science behind the claims I just made, you can watch my diabetes video, which links saturated fat and dairy to diabetes. Also, when comparing several diets, even ones including chicken, a plant-based diet is the most effective at reducing inflammation, which contributes to Honey Booboo's asthma. They close by reinforcing her fear of sugar, and even if she does go on the doctor's diet, she will still be consuming animal products 3 times a day probably, which will worsen all of her ailments over time. Now going a bit older, here's Jacob Miller, who at 1 year old was 52 pounds, and by the time he was 15, he was over 700 pounds, which led, of course, to
obviously diabetes. He's had several cases of cellulitis in his legs, heart disease,
non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I mean, those are all conditions caused by being overweight.
The Cincinnati Children's Hospital did a short documentary, you can watch it on YouTube. It was partly diet and exercise, but largely it was an advertisement for stapling children's stomachs, where in the documentary, of course, they did surgery on him doing just that. Throughout the video, there's absolutely no responsibility put on his parents, who are both overweight. It's sort of like he just likes to eat kind of mentality. Here's his dad.
Even for me, you know, as big as I am, I know that that's not normal for a kid to be that big, so something had to be done.
The part where the doctor proudly speaks about the surgery kind of irks me, because though, yeah, he went down to 530 pounds, they did a good thing, it still was such a twisted solution. They went in and did surgery on him just so he could lose some weight. And it's just not a long-term solution. He's still massively overweight. The sad truth is, Jacob is a victim of diet. I mean, look at these school lunches that he grew up eating. Pretty much McDonald's, but less vegetables. They did put him on a special diet though, but something tells me it was baked chicken. The sad fact is that 90% of people in the US believe they are eating healthy, yet they end up with 1/5 of the children obese. Little bit of a disparity there. It's like, since they aren't eating fast food every meal, they're somehow eating healthy, and that after they slam in some barbecue wings, they can convince themselves that it was healthy because they had a salad afterward. And this is the point where I mentioned that vegans are the only group of population that has a normal BMI. That means they're in a healthy weight. Everybody else is overweight. Also, they have really low incidences of heart disease, diabetes, and all of our leading killers. And don't forget that by cutting out all animal products, you're reducing the amount of toxins you consume by 95%, which is a pretty compelling lead link to obesity. In the end, only parents are responsible for feeding their children. So whatever diseases they get, and obesity is now a disease, is the parents' responsibility, and they should be held accountable. Well, what do you think? Do you think we should change child abuse laws? Do you have any other ideas? If you do, feel free. Let me know down below, and thank you for watching.
I don't even know what this is.